Aloha. Namaste. This is Radha, and I'm here to talk about our partial solar eclipse that is happening here on the 21st, which is Sunday. Here in Hawaii, it's going to again be one that's not visible for us. And I'm just going to bring up the exact time. So the first place in the world that the partial eclipse will be seen begins at 7:29 a.m. Hawaii time, which is the universal time on that is 17:29, so it's 5:29 p.m. In UTC. And then the max point is going to be 9:41 a.m. here in Hawaii. Again, the UTC time on that is 19:41, which is 7:41 p.m. And then the last location, the time there will be 9:53 p.m. Universal Time and 11:53 a.m. here in Hawaii. So the span of it is happening in the morning time here in Hawaii, but yet it's still not going to be visible for us. And those UTC times are just kind of the span of the eclipse worldwide. And the reason it's really important to understand that part of it is because not everywhere does see it. So if you're in a location where it's visible, you can look up the times for exactly when it would be available for you. Of course, I don't recommend going out in solar eclipse, but just to know when to go inside, to know when to hide from the rays. But for those of us who aren't going to be able to see it, knowing like what time period it's in is really important for kind of knowing when to also honor that. Maybe you're sitting at an altar at that time, or if you're, forced to be in some kind of functional way doing errands, or it's a Sunday, so hopefully a lot of people won't have to work. Um, you can just be mindful in those moments. I've found that when I've had to drive during eclipse windows, it's been just like constant possible accidents happening. So my awareness of that time frame really allows me to like be on alert of the fact that people are going to be driving a little crazy, and everything's going to be kind of like the Twilight Zone. So I really like to look at the little span there. But the actual new moon, because of course solar eclipses happen on new moons, is going to be at 9:54 a.m. here in Hawaii, which is 12:54 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And the moon and the sun are coming together, and I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen for this. They're coming together in Virgo, where the eclipsing node is actually in Leo. So that's why this is a partial eclipse. We had a new moon in Leo a month ago, and yet it was so far from the node that it wasn't even an eclipse. Now we have the eclipsing node in Leo and the sun and the moon at the beginning of Virgo, and it's close enough. You can see that each sign is 30 degrees. It's at 24 degrees, and this is not even 5 degrees into Virgo. So we have a 10-degree differential between the eclipse point and the sun and the moon. In our total full moon that we had 2 weeks ago, the node was very close. It was within 5 degrees of the moon. So I think it was within like 3 degrees of the moon, actually. So this is why it's partial and why we're able to have an eclipse when the actual sun and moon are in a different sign than the node. This is going to be an interesting one for us, especially because if you remember last year at this time, the node was in Virgo, right? And we probably, I think we did have a partial eclipse where the sun and moon were actually in Leo and the node was close enough. So now we're having kind of the reverse experience of that. And this is setting off a cycle in this Virgo house. So whatever house it is for you, Virgo as a sign emanates cleanliness, purity. It's the sign of the Virgin. It's the sign of us trying to return to that place within ourselves that feels completely brand new and pure. The struggle in Virgo is we never get there, right? We can never go back in time. You can never have your dress be brand new again. You're always moving towards aging rather than getting younger, even if you're doing all the right things to make yourself feel like you're getting younger. The truth of your years is that you're actually getting older. Um, and eventually it will catch up with you no matter how wonderful your skincare routine is or your diet and exercise program is. And no matter how much we clean, we always have to clean again, right? If we organize the drawers and we make everything perfect in our house within a week, if you have children, maybe you can last 2 to 3 weeks if you don't have children, or any pets. The house is needs it again, right? You can't just do it once and be good. Your spring cleaning is just the deep clean. Ultimately, you have to constantly upkeep the Virgo things of life, the details that we let go untended become problems. They become difficulties. They become health problems if we're not tending to our health. They become financial problems if we're not tending to our finances and our account management. They become relational problems if we're not having the conversations that need to be had. And since the ruler of Mercury, the ruler of Virgo, Mercury, is also here, we're going to see that this conversation communication element is really pertinent here. It's really important. We have Mercury in her own sign or his own sign. He's kind of a neutral gendered planet. And in this sign, he is both exalted and the Malatrikona planet of the sign. So he's very strong in his own sign. All the planets are strong in their own sign, but Mercury is the most strong in particularly this sign of Virgo. It's an earth sign, so we're grounded and practical in our approach to our communication and also our information like that we're bringing in, our capacity to understand things. We tend to categorize things and organize them, as I said, in Virgo. So we're taking the information, we're putting it somewhere. With Gemini, things can get a little bit crazy and wild, and the information doesn't always have a place to go. And we might just keep wanting more and more and more before we have it organized. In Virgo, everything's going to find its place, right? We're not going to have that messy closet that we open where everything falls out. And so that grounded, practical approach, that really tangible approach, really works well for Mercury, really works well for our communication. It's also, in his own sign, there's still that flexibility that Mercury brings, that capacity to take in new information and not to be so attached to the beliefs that we already had. That's one of the things that Mercury really struggles with, particularly in Sagittarius, is this strong-rooted belief system, this confirmation bias. And we also have, Jupiter in Mercury's sign. So our beliefs are tending towards what information we see, what facts we see. We're going to tend to turn towards beliefs that have evidence. So here, this particular new moon, we're going to see that wherever we haven't been dealing with things, wherever we haven't been tending the details, is up for us right now. And since Saturn is across the way here in Uttara Bhadrapada in Pisces at very close degrees, we've been kind of committed to those things that are a little bit more ephemeral, a little bit more confusing perhaps, and oceanic, not clear, not able, you can't put water in drawers and organize it, right? You can't clean water. You can try, you can't clean oceans of water. You can purify small amounts of water. It's very difficult to reckon with the sea. And so we've been in our state of commitment here, and it's a retrograde commitment. So we're almost drowning in it over on the Pisces end. And on the Virgo end, we're now being asked like, okay, well, what details have you not been paying attention to? And since this new moon is coming after the sun and Mercury and the moon more recently have been in Leo, and even as we speak, the eclipsing node is here and Venus, we're seeing how it's particularly also the details that pertain to the kingdom we're upholding, right? Where our power is. So we hold this power, we say, I have this authority, I'm doing this thing, I'm doing that thing, but how are we actually maintaining that? Anyone can don a robe and sit on a throne, but there is a point where there needs to be some management, some micromanagement that's happening. And the king, of course, can hire different attendants and different people to take care of each area of their life, but most of us have to manage quite a bit on our own. So how are we managing those details? and not just enjoying the fruits of what we've acquired or accrued or the life that we're living. And you can really see this because Purva Falguni, the star before Uttara Falguni, so the sun and the moon move into Virgo on Uttara Falguni. It's partially in Leo, partially in Virgo. It's called the marriage star. It's said to be the star Shiva and Parvati got married under. And it's ruled by Aryaman, who's this figure of friendship. He brings together two parties. He's the groomsman. He's the ultimate wingman, and he helps us find agreements in our agreements, right? We come to some kind of agreed upon set of rules in which we are moving forward in our partnerships, not just our romantic partnerships, right? Our business partnerships require this too. And so Purva Falguni is where it's all just fun. It's delight, it's excitement. We're infatuated with this new person or this new idea that we have. You know, if it's a business partnership, we're thrilled at the idea there's someone else who wants to do the same thing as us. We are seeing things through our eyes, and yet then there comes the part where we have to take some responsibility and actually say, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do. What are you going to do? How are we going to move through this together beyond just the excitement of a romantic affair? How do we turn this into a marriage? And so Ketu is coming from that Purva Falguni place, casting the shadow on the sun and saying, this is the place where we got caught up in what our eyes could see or what delight we were experiencing. And it's going to cause a problem here in our future dealings. Or another way of looking at it is this is the place where there's not enough delight. And we're just making these agreements, you know, like these marriages that are agreed upon by two families, and the two people don't have any love, any passion between them. That's another way that this can show up, particularly because Venus is here, and Venus isn't quite in Ketu's space yet, but she will be. And this is going to have us really question what brings us happiness, have us scrutinize what could be really joyful, particularly at the time when she's transiting her own star. Venus isn't necessarily at her best in Leo, but when she's in Purva Falguni, she does a little better because it's her star, it's Venus's star within the sun sign of Leo. And so we might be a little bit more kind of nitpicky or disgruntled or kind of like about ways in which we're showing up for our happiness in our relationships, our romantic side, our femininity, you know, that wild outlandish dress that the Venus person might show up in. The K2's like, that doesn't look good, or that's, you know, that showiness isn't working right now. So we can see that that's a theme that's going to be getting increasingly strong, but it's even casting its shadow on this particular new moon, because the cycle we're setting off is one of making these agreements. And if we're already not pleased, then then what's even exciting and compelling us to move forward into this agreement? You know, the boring part is the part we're at. So we at least want to have that excitement propelling us forward. And K2's putting a bit of a wet rag on the excitement. And so it becomes kind of all about this curmudgeon-y, you know, order. And I shouldn't say it's curmudgeon-y, except for Saturn's across the way, casting his doubt and his fear and his, you know, kind of way of saying, well, this could go wrong and this could go wrong and this could go wrong. And so this could make it really difficult to move forward in any kind of arrangement we have, because we're going to have this doubt building up across the way. And it's a seventh house drishti. So the sun and the moon are also casting their gaze on Saturn. So the things we've committed to are also receiving our reflection of power, our psyche, our emotional state in this more anxious sign of Virgo, and saying, like, you got to get out of the water, you know, you got to find your way to swim through the waves and make something happen. So the anxiety can kind of go both ways. And then Saturn puts his internal fear that keeps us from doing the things we need to do because he's so drowning in all the emotions that it's difficult to pull ourselves out and take care of just actual business sometimes. So this is a very interesting eclipse. It's a bit of a confusing eclipse, I would say, because there's so many different running elements, right? We have Mercury in his own sign, fairly close to the sun and moon. We have the eclipsing node in Leo, so it's bringing in how the power is our disgust of power is actually eclipsing our capacity to even organize our respective kingdoms. And then we have this Saturnian energy across the way, casting doubt and fear, but also an anxiety and a need to commit to something, but kind of drowning in our emotional state. So this is a really important time to get clear on what we are ready to shed. Ketu is the south node, right? So this is a time when we're able to come to close on certain karma. And so what is it we're ready to kind of bring to a close in terms of our relationship with power, particularly perhaps in relationships, our power dynamics we work with in relationships, and in the agreements that we make with people? How do we give away our power because we want delight, because we want to feel good things? How do we hold more power because we want to control the happiness and make sure we get it? So for each of us, it shows up really differently. And this is why I do these forecasts for all signs, because it really is going to be a different house in each of our charts. They're going to be different planets. It's really going to be a different experience for each of us. And so if you go to patreon.com, Radha Home Astrology, and sign up for Cosmically Aligned, you'll see that breakdown for each of us. I'm doing a video breakdown for this particular eclipse. And for the lunar eclipse we had 2 weeks ago, we did a live discussion. I also have breakdowns for both the sun and Mercury separately. What does that mean for your sign? Having the sun in Virgo, having Mercury transit in Virgo. These are really important things to look at, how it's different for each of us. But in a general sense, we're reckoning with these various areas of our life that reflect upon how we're holding power, how we're handling other people's power, how we're organizing our lives, and where are we like kind of drowning? And, Saturn still has a couple weeks to go, a few weeks to go. We're only in September before he's going to begin his direct path. So this has been building all summer. The places where we're just kind of like backing up on our commitments or even questioning the commitments we've made. And it can feel like drowning when Saturn's retrograde, no matter what, but particularly in such a watery sign as Pisces, where we're already what we're trying to commit to feels very difficult to hold on to. It's hard to grasp. It's literally the opposite sign of Virgo. There's no drawer you can put it into. And so you can feel really lost and confused at this time. This is the end of Pitru Paksha as well. This new moon is the end of the fortnight, the 2 weeks of Pitru Paksha that began with that lunar eclipse 2 weeks ago. And so this is a time where we're bringing to close those prayers and those offerings we're making to our guardian angels that are our ancestors. And whatever we've received, whatever insight we've received in this time, whatever lineage we've been able to understand on a deeper level, we can bring forth in our path to kind of end this karmic. There might be some karmic pathways we need to bring an end to. We are each responsible for our own lineage in how it carries forward. We're not responsible for what happened a long time ago, but we're responsible for what the next steps forward will be. Are we just going to continue, keep on keeping on? Or are there certain things we're going to bring to close? Are there certain ways we're going to do it differently? And there's certain traditions and cultures and things that we're going to bring, we're going to continue with because, and even uphold and make sacred again and again and again, because they get lost in the shuffle of time. And so this is that coming to an end. And then we're going to start with Navaratri. So the 9 nights of the Goddess Mother is beginning with this eclipse with this new moon in this new cycle. And that's each night celebrates a different emanation of Durga. And you can also look at them in sections of threes, where there's the part where we're honoring what we need to, pardon me, what we need to break down and cut down in the section that is on Durga Kali. And then we have the section where we're looking at what we want to nurture, what we want to feed and grow in the Lakshmi part, the 3 nights that are dedicated to Lakshmi. And then at the end, we have this dedication to Saraswati. And what are we bringing in new? What are we creating? And so this 9 nights is a beautiful time to really tune into this feminine energy that Venus is bringing in Leo of the queen, our maidenhood and our queendom. This week, in fact, we have Venus and the moon joined in Leo. So you can really see that battle between the maiden and the mother, or the princess and the queen. Every person, whether they're male or female, have some relationship to this part of us that wants to be pretty and nice and get along, be accommodating and admired, and the part of us that has depth of emotion and wants to connect and caretake and have unconditional love and might feel used at times. And so this is the path from maiden to mother, right? If you've walked it, you know, moving from being like, almost on a shelf to being the most useful and functional human ever, keeping others alive. And so many people don't make this transition anymore, whether or not it's because they didn't have children or just because they kind of get stuck in their maidenhood, even if they do have children. The same could be said for the masculine, right? People stay in their more Marsian energy, and they have trouble moving into the king. More and more you see a planet of people who are really stuck in this childish nature of what they're expecting, what they should be happening for them, what they should be receiving, and they feel disgruntled or upset when they're not receiving that. And so understanding our own path to facing our demons and stepping into our own higher level, whether you relate more to a masculine or feminine energy and are stepping into it as, Durga, or whether you want to view this more as like a Shiva energy, finding your power and finding your capacity to face what is difficult and what is constantly morphing. You face one battle with somebody, you get rid of that one toxic person in your life. Oh, lo and behold, there's another toxic person right there, ready to face you again. This is a big part of the path over the 10 nights, or excuse me, the 9 nights, and there's 10 days. The final day is Vijaya Dasami. It's this celebration of Durga's conquering of the evil demon who shapeshifted and created this battle to begin with. And of course, the deeper undercurrent of our story is that everything is coming from her, including our demon, right? Including the all the different emanations of shadow energy and all the different energies of Shakti, all the different parts of her that helped her fight the battle, because she didn't just stay in her one kind of Durga outfit and queendom and ride on her tiger and say, look at me, I'm, so powerful. She had to pull things out of her in order to conquer him. And that is available to each of us on some level. Just like all the different shadowed sides of the asuras, the beings without light, all the different demonic emanations and apparitions that come out are also part of us. And it's up to us to conquer them. It's up to us to pull our power out to conquer what is holding us back. And so this is a really beautiful time to pray into that, to meditate into that, to continue sitting at your altar that you've already hopefully been blessing up with your ancestral prayers, and bringing her in, allowing her to come to your altar, asking for help. That's another major theme with the goddess, is you have to ask her for help and she will come. So have a blessed solar eclipse, new moon, and beginning of Navaratri. And if you would like to join again to find out how this eclipse is affecting you personally, how Mercury being in your sign and the sun being in, excuse me, Mercury being in your Virgo house, whatever house that is for you, and the sun being in that same house, how that affects you personally. I also just did a transit report for Mars and Venus last week. So you can see how Mars being in Libra and Venus being in Leo affects you. I do these for every transit. I do all the weekly transits every week because it's really important to understand how your week is running and how these major turns of the planets are affecting you. You need to know how it's showing up in your particular chart. It's not just going to be the general forecast. So that's why I do these reports. So again, it's www.patreon.com/Radahome And if you would like to join me in November, I'm going to be teaching at the Parshara Jyotish conference. It's an online conference. I'm teaching on the Monday, November 24th. We're going to take a journey through working with mythology, working with these Mahadevas, these deities like Durga, and how they help us work with our difficult karma that shows up in our chart. So we have all kinds of ways of looking at this, whether it's planetary, whether it's by house, challenging houses that we're dealing with, challenging dasha cycles we might be dealing with, or transits, and the ways in which I work with these more spiritual energies in order to help myself and others evolve and learn the lessons so we don't keep having them come back up again. So it's not just kind of sticking a band-aid on it and saying, okay, this is my remedy for this week, but then the problem's going to morph again into another way, just like, one form of Shakti is able to conquer one form of a demon, but then it comes up in another way. Because if we don't deal with things from the very, very core, then they do. That's how life works. Our lessons come back again and again in different shapes until we learn them. And so I find that this more spiritual approach to remedy can be really helpful, particularly for long patterned problems that we've had, but also for short-term transits that we're going through that might be really ailing us or bringing us a lot of fear with other approaches, where we're things like sati and stuff, where we're very afraid of what's going to happen. So I'm going to be talking about this for a 90-minute class in the Parshars Jyotish conference, and I hope you can join me there. You can use the code RADHA, RADHA, and you will receive 10.8% off of the price for either just the Monday pass or if you decide to join us for the whole conference. It's a lot of very exciting teachers and classes. It's a lot of fun. I learned a lot last year, and I'm excited again for this year. So hope to see you either here or in Cosmically Aligned on Patreon, or maybe at the conference in November. Blessed new moon and Navaratri. Namaste.